Okay. Oh, I think we're live, y'all. Hey, everybody, whoever's joining us. We'll try and get settled a little bit as we let people come in, but we're excited to do the hard conversations with our trusted faces again, and it was really popular. We appreciate all of your input. For those of you who joined us live and those who watched the replay of it, and the questions and comments that y'all added in there were really valuable to us. So we're really excited that Demetra and Kwan would join us again. So I tell you what, if you're joining in right now, if you'll let us know what part of the world you're showing up from. It's always interesting to hear what state you're coming from, what city you're showing up from, and just curious, maybe that even has an impact on your view of racism. So let us know that. Even if you're watching this as a replay, let us know. Put a comment in there and let us know that you've showed up and you want to be a part of these conversations, because I think for some of us, it's just a start. It's a place where we can start and listen and learn. And that's really our biggest hope here, is that you can learn from these conversations that we have. And we feel lucky enough to have trusted faces that we can have these conversations with. So as you're coming on, just add in your name, where you're showing up from, and I'll get to the introductions. So I'm Ann Barwick, and I am a leadership and personal development coach. I'm the owner of a company, A Strong You. And if you're on Facebook and looking for some inspiration, I have a Facebook group called Putting the Yay Back in the Day. So I'm also the co-founder of the Risk Takers Dream Makers project, and really excited about this project that we started, gosh, I guess over a year. It's been over a year ago. And we really started this project to support and encourage women taking risks and going for their dreams. And we love championing passionate, purposeful women, and really encouraging other women to read these stories and, you know, maybe get inspired to go for their passions and their purpose. So this is my co-founder, Andrea Giesling, and I'll let her introduce herself to you.
Yes, hi, and thank you for joining us for part 2 of this series. And we're so honored to have both Demetra and Kwan back to join us. So thank you both for being here and taking time to do this. I am Andrea Kiesling, co-founder of RTDM. And as Ann said, it is our mission, and we exist to share the stories of everyday women who are living their dream and hopes to inspire others to do the same. I also found Andrea Kiesling Coaching, and I am a values, mindset, and accountability coach as well. And as mentioned, and as Ann mentioned, I am going to be managing the comments as best as possible. So please feel free to drop in your questions, and I will make sure to share those with Kwan and Demetra, and we'll keep this panel and just conversation going. So please feel free to add in. We want to make this as interactive as possible.
Yeah, so I'm going to let how about Demetra? Would you mind introducing yourself? I do know Demetra through coaching. My coaching certification program is where I met Demetra, and she was an incredible part of my training as being a coach. And then we've just continued our friendship. So Demetra, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. Again, I want to say thank you to you and Andrea for inviting me back. I'm excited to be here. And just to share a little bit about me, again, my name is Demetra Moore, the founder of More Out of Life. And what I simply do is I coach and train small business owners, and I specialize in working with those in the cosmetology industry. And if you want to connect with me, questions or whatnot, you can definitely reach out to me. And you can find me on Facebook under Demetra Moore. I have a really cool group that I just started too. It's called The Business of Beauty. And you will see a picture of me there, so you'll know it's me, minus the 4 eyes. You won't see me wearing glasses. I didn't put contacts in today. but nevertheless, you can find my group there. And but nevertheless, I'm just excited to share the platform with you guys tonight, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Thanks so much, Demetra. And Kwan, the wonderful Kwan, who I know from our charter school, and getting to know her has been like a huge benefit in my life. She's helped me navigate a lot of things. I've called Kwan to talk me off the ledge many times. But Kwan, tell everybody, I know a lot about you, but tell everybody else about you.
Sure. Well, I am so glad to continue this conversation. I'm glad to be back. Thank you for inviting me. I am Kwan Graham. I am really the mother of Zen and Mason Graham. And so that is my biggest lens that I do what I do. In my professional career, I work for Parents for Educational Freedom. I'm director of their community engagement, and my job is to talk to parents about what their options are within education and how to choose that best option. So we believe that within education, your zip code, your race, your socioeconomic background should not hinder you from getting a quality education. And that's what we fight for. So I'm glad to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kwan. What you do is so important, and we thank you for raising the opportunities for education for all of our children, because that's our future.
It's the it's the foundation. The foundation of
Do
everything.
you have a website or a Facebook page I can link up in comments so that anybody can find more about your work?
Sure. So Parents for Educational Freedom, the website is pefnc.org.
And I see Tanya Tolson just got owned.
Ah, Tanya, she's part of our team. She's part of our team. Love
Karen
her.
Ostendorf.
Yes. Hey, Miss O.
Miss O, Mr. and Mrs. O, talk about education and
Yes.
raising our children's education.
Can't do it without our teachers.
And a colleague, a coaching colleague, Jess Ramsey, just joined. So today, again, Andrea is going to help manage the comments. If you see her kind of going out the other way, she's trying to connect with y'all on Facebook. And again, thank you for joining us on Facebook if you're joining us live and letting us know where you're coming from. I'm seeing a few different cities and states represented. So Kwan, Demetra, and I are in Charlotte, North Carolina. And Andrea, tell them where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'm actually just outside of Minneapolis, Minnesota currently, but I am based in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I'll be getting back there pretty soon.
Yeah, we'll be happy to have you back too. But it's been interesting to get your point of view.
Taking all the action, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So if you missed the part one of these hard conversations, the videos on the Facebook page, check it out, because I learned so much last time with our conversations. And this time we were just talking about different things that, what are things people ask us about and what should we talk about? And we realize there's a trend here going of buzzwords, kind of the buzzwords that we're all hearing floating around in media and with our friends and on social media. So we're just going to tackle a few of those today and get, points of view on that. So the first question I have is, so what does it mean? What does it mean to you, Kwan and Demetra, when someone says, I'm colorblind?
You want to go first, Demetra, or want me to go first?
Y'all are both so colorblind.
We'll volley back and forth.
Yes. I think for me, when someone tells me I'm colorblind or I don't see color, it diminishes the individuality of us, of everyone. America is made up of different cultures, different colors, different shades, different nationalities. And so to negate that, I know where the heart of that is coming from, which means, I don't see your color. I don't have a bias against you. I don't have a bias against, against another race. But I think that when people say that, it has to have some context with it. And the context would be, the reason why I say I don't see color is because I feel everyone is equal. I love everyone, but you need to see color. You need to know and embrace everyone's differences and their history, and acknowledge that, because I am who I am, and my history makes me who I am. My family history, the history of African Americans, where I come from is makeup, and to identify that and acknowledge that, I think is validating. Is validating.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
Demetra, how do you feel about that?
I echo everything that Kwan said, and I too believe that when people say I don't see color, most of them mean well, and they want to level the playing field, but at the same time, you lose the uniqueness of the person and everything that they bring. And I say that because I have different friends of different nationalities, and one of my friends is Asian. Love her dearly. And I don't ever want to say I don't see color, because she can cook amazing foods. And I want to appreciate everything that she brings to our friendship. And I mean, and I love, love, love Chinese food. I can eat it every day. And when I'm talking to her, she was like, well, let me see the dish you're talking about. And when I'm talking to her about it, she's like, oh, that's not what it's called. You know, you got it wrong. And I appreciate the value that she brings in the culture that she shares with me, because if I chose not to see color, I'm diminishing part of who she is. And I want to appreciate every ounce of what she brings. And we have these candid conversations. And if I don't understand something, I can ask her and she will share with me, and I'm appreciating the person. But I do believe that people's heart is in the right place. But why not just say, I don't see a bias with you, and I appreciate everything that you bring. But I think that is such a buzzword nowadays. I don't see color. I see you for the person that you are. But how could you truly see me and not see what I bring, and not appreciate the uniqueness of everything about me that I bring into your life, and vice versa? Because for me, I don't say that. I don't say I don't see color. I want to appreciate every person for who they are, when they come into my life.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I think over the years, I'm sure at some point there was a time where I thought maybe to say not seeing color was it just raised me up, right? That I was higher than that. And then there's some awareness there.
Yeah.
Now I do have something like with my daughters. I've raised them in a way to not say that Black girl or that gay guy or something like that, right? And I think and that's only because I say, before you describe somebody by their gender, their sexuality, their race, think if there's other qualities that you could describe them by, right? Because there's not a lot of times where you'd say that white girl, right? So why are you using the race or that? So, but that's different than being colorblind. It's just it's being aware of the individuality of the person.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. Do we have any questions or comments on that, Andrea?
Not on that particular topic, but we've got a lot of people that are tuned in.
Yeah, I see. Sasanine, Sasanine Allen? I don't know if y'all know her. She's tuned in. Yeah. And I know I'm saying, I'm butchering that name really bad. Is that?
Yeah, she goes way back. We're from New York. She knows
awesome.
way back. Her mother and my mother were very, very good friends, and so we've known each other a long time. I'm glad she settled here in Charlotte. So what's up, girl?
Cool. I hope to meet her someday.
Yeah.
Okay. So and also Elisa Hawkins joined in. But so okay, moving on again to some more buzzwords, and this is something that I think the three of us, Demetra and Kwan and I think we were aware of the definition of this, but not the actual buzzword. And Andrea brought it up to me the other day, of virtue signaling. And I'm going to read the definition that I have on my computer in front of me, but it says the sharing of one's point of view on a social or political issue, often on social media, in order to garner praise or acknowledgement of one's righteousness from others who share that point of view, or to passively rebuke those who do not. So I think we've seen it, and I would guess examples of putting your post as a black background on your Instagram. I've heard friends complain about. I heard one friend was saying, you know, I have a friend that, and she was white, and she was complaining about her white friend who she said went to high school with her and was like, I told Demetra this before, she dug up some picture of herself. This is what she told me, and posted it, right, of her with a minority. I think it was with an African-American female. But this other friend was kind of outraged at, like, why I knew you in high school, you'd hang out with that person, now you're digging this up and posting it. And I don't know, I didn't quite understand the anger behind it, but in my discussion with you, Kwan, you kind of helped me see that a little bit. I was kind of like, well, whatever you want to do it, right? If you're doing something instead of just sitting completely still. And maybe that brought up the awareness if that person had to dig up that photo, right, and look hard for it. And maybe she even had to friend the person on Facebook. Who knows, right? But that brings, at least there's an awareness hopefully happening that she had to do that. But what are your ideas on that with virtue signaling? And either one of you go for it.
Well, I'll say for me, I'm only posting what I believe in wholeheartedly. And that comes with anything. And I think each person has to think, am I a leader in my life or am I following? And when I'm posting and sharing and standing up for a cause, I must believe in it. So, and now, I mean, now that you brought it to me before, you know, before we went live, I started thinking about it. I'm like, I've seen that a lot, and I've seen people do that. And sometimes I guess maybe they're doing it for support, but for Demetra, I'm only posting and standing for what I believe in.
And I think that I'm glad that you brought that term. I had never heard that term before. And what it brings to me is that when you post something, when you say someone is angry about it, you know, someone that knows you is angry about it, there's levels of hypocrisy, right? And so there are trends now. Are you with the movement? Are you not with the movement? Are you a racist? Are you not a racist? And you know, and I've had conversations where people will post something, and even if it was the opposite side, you know, it's, are you being hypocritical with your post? Why are you posting that? Everybody needs to come from a point of, why am I doing what I'm doing? And so you can put a post, and I can go to your Facebook page, and I can go to your Instagram page, and I can start looking through your posts, and I can find a post. If I find a post that's completely opposite of what you're trending in that day or in that moment, then you're being hypocritical. And so I challenge anyone that if you're going to start and showing your support, it's how are you showing your support, and why are you showing your support for this cause? I know those that are with me. I know those that love me and that support me. I don't personally need to see a post to know that you are with me, but I do have, I've been exposed to, and I shared this with you, and this was a really tough week for me personally, not only because of what's happening, but because of exactly what you're talking about. There were conversations on Facebook that I was friends with some of the families that are posting this. It was hard to take, because my biggest thing is it the time for that post? Is it time for that type of conversation? When you're talking about life or death and someone dying, and us getting to the root of why that person was killed. Why was that person killed? There's other ways that it could have been handled. Why, you know, do we need to have a conversation about A or B? And so in looking and reading those and having to, if I see your post and I feel like I need to defend myself because, one, I know you're being hypocritical, or two, your why is not true,
Mhm.
that brings anxiety to me. That brings anxiety to my family. That brings anxiety to everyone that's on my post. And now I'm taking time out of who I am and what I'm doing to defend myself. And when I tell y'all on my posts and Facebook, I'm tired, I cannot stress that enough. The African American community, and I speak for everyone, we are so tired because of posts like that or conversations like that when people are not taking the time to say, why am I doing this? Why am I saying this? You can always have an opinion. You can always, but at this point, if you're with this movement and you really want equality, your why should be supportive in every aspect of your life so
Mhm.
that you can't have a friend say, I can't believe they post that because I know what I talked to them about last week. You know what I mean? So the why on those type of posts is really, really critical. And I think that, and Demetra, you can, I think we're at a point now where it's about what you do
Right.
and less about what you say.
Right.
It's more about what you're doing in the community, in your church, in your home. What are you teaching your children? What are you reinforcing when y'all are out and you see something that's wrong? Are you speaking against racism? Are you speaking against equality? If you're in church and you see someone that's treating someone that's unkind and unfair, are you speaking? Because if you're not speaking to it, don't waste your time with a Facebook post. Please
Right.
save it, right? And so I think that's where that comes, that rubs to me, with that being hypocritical, or do you really know the why?
Yeah, yeah, I like that. I mean, knowing the why, that's so important. I think, and I think, I've seen those posts too, where people are just going back and forth, and a lot of times I see it where they're in defense mode and
Right.
they're just going at it to prove their point of either why they're not a racist or why this, but it's like, listen, it don't just be ready to stick with your point. If you get on there, be open. If you're going to share something, be open to listening to what others have to say about it, and maybe you can learn.
And a lot of the issues that we are facing now when it comes to race, it's either life altering or it's death.
Mm-hmm.
It's no in between. When you say black or white and then there's gray, when you're talking about a life altering decision with either law enforcement, where you have a felony now, you have a record now, or you're talking about education where you don't have the same access because of a decision. You get into a situation and then someone's dead, it alters the whole family. We are this is a point in our lives where, in this generation, where we really have to say, what are we doing here? Whatever you do, whatever you stand for, what is the end result? Because what I'm seeing, what my boys are seeing, what Dennis is seeing, what Grant is seeing, is it's death or it's life altering. And the life altering is not going towards the positive. The life altering is to the negative. And we have to change that. And it's going to take all of us to change that. I can't do it without you. I can't do it without Demetria. And so it's really, what am I arguing about?
Yeah.
What point am I pointing out? What is my conversation? If your conversation isn't about a life altering change or preventing a death, I just don't think the conversation is now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I
like I
think,
said, it was a tough week.
I
I'm
know.
sorry, it was a tough week. It's been a tough week.
We appreciate that you could show up during this tough
Yeah,
week
just a
and
tough week.
have these conversations, because like you talked about, that's what your why. And I think Andrea and I discussed, um, at length about what is our why for even having this live video and feed. And for us, it was education, and we were sitting down, and we have varying points of views and things, but we're able to sit and listen and talk about it. And we are like, wouldn't this be cool if if people who are scared to talk about it.
Right.
And I think the big thing too is we have built relationships with you two, so we could have, that's why we call it, with trusted faces.
Right.
But to have those conversations, and even if somebody is just eavesdropping on these and learning from what you two have to teach us, and what we can share with you that we're hearing, right, as
Mhm.
well. So maybe you can help us understand it better.
Right.
But what I hear you saying too is really aligning with your truth, making sure it's aligned. It's kind of like, it reminded me of the Don Ruiz and the Four Agreements. Be impeccable with your word. Just
Yeah.
be impeccable with it. Like if
Yeah.
you're going to say it out there, then, and then also putting action to it is what I hear. Like,
Right.
how can you put some action to it and help? And I know, Kwan, when you sent me an email thread or something, when we were going back and forth, and it was something about what we need our white moms to jump in. It was an article about that. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that really hit me, like, yeah, okay, I'm joining a book club, which is great, right?
Right.
I'm reading White Fragility, and I am a minority in that book club, which is pretty cool. But also, like, what else can I do? And I was really excited when Andrea wanted to be, we could use this platform.
Yeah.
They seem small, but hopefully it will trickle somewhere, right? And
It's changing one heart at a time. This is a heart thing. This is a heart movement. This is a, what do you believe in, and what do you stand for? It is the same wave in the civil rights movement, in the change of Jim Crow, in the abolishment of slavery. That wave, this spirit that's coming through now, that is, something has got to change. It's that same momentum, that same energy, different topic, different circumstances, but the move for change is the same. And so the urgency, right, and the push that say we have to do this all together, it is urgent because that's how things were changed before. That's how a positive change came. That's because everyone together came together to make that change. And so in your own world, in your own areas of influence, you need to be making that change. If you're in a position where you own a business and you haven't taken the time to think about doing an internship program with an historically Black college, or you haven't talked about giving back to a Title I school in a Black community that the school is not performing well, if you in your influence in your business haven't even thought about that, historically Black colleges are full of leaders that can make a difference in your company, and you're not talking about that bridge or that lifeline, right? Then what are you really doing? What are you really doing to reach out to the Hispanic community, to make bridges and resources for children and leaders within their own community? Anybody can make change. Anybody can be an influence in their own little area, and that's what we're looking for. That's the wave of the movement of this change.
yeah, I think that's so powerful. Anybody can make a
Right.
change and be a part of it. And I think that's one of the things I've seen so many incredible stories.
Right.
Like, what is a Kennedy Mitchum, who's 22 and challenged Webster's dictionary on the definition of racism, and they're shifting it. And I think one of the young women who started one of our protests here in Charlotte, young girl, maybe in high school.
Yeah.
And it was just her, just one. I remember watching her interview, and she said, she couldn't believe how many people came out. It was, I think, maybe thousands, but they were like, who's behind this? Who's the big group
Who's
behind
the
this?
leader?
One girl, so it's amazing the change that we can make. So okay, so the next buzzword is
And before we jump in, I have a question. This might be I guess
Yeah.
that. So Kwan, this is for you. Jessica Ramsey, she says, I feel like educators have been screaming about this for years. For me, it felt like I was fighting constantly to get the same resources and opportunities for my students. One of the reasons I left was because I was so dang tired. Do you know about a movement of educators who are speaking up in mass right now? There are so many I know who feel the same way I feel.
Yeah, so a group of educators, I mean, that's tough because there's so many schools, there's so many options and schools of choice. You have private schools, charter schools, you have your traditional schools. Um, I don't know, unfortunately, I don't know of an actual organization. What I would encourage any educator, even if you decided to step outside of the classroom, you're always an educator at heart, right? So I would encourage that you look at organizations such as Plug, PEF&C, right? But we really look at the individual family and what the need of that child is, right? But if you look at within the traditional public school, even if you look at programs that are bridging that gap and support those programs, right? If you look at programs that teach teachers that are new teachers coming in, and if you're retired and you go back in, because the thing about education is that the teachers are the heart of education, and that when they see that children are equal and all children can learn and all children can inspire, and you treat that child as your own, if that's your philosophy and you can reach back and teach a teacher that's coming out of college, first, second year, to change their perspective that, African American, English as a second language students, children with disabilities, that they have a role and a destiny and a journey that you are going to then build up and buy into. I don't know if you really need an organizational to do that. You can go to your local school and start that. You can look at different options and where the need is. Volunteering, getting involved. I mean, there's 100 Black Men. I work with them. Young Black Leaders Alliance. I work with them. I mean, there are organizations that cater to struggling communities, but educators really teaching other teachers how to see that student and push that student on their journey, I think is the most effective. I hope I answered the question right. Jessica, let me know if I didn't.
I'll connect you two if you
Yeah,
want.
connect me, call me, inbox me.
Okay, so our next buzzword is systematic racism. And how would you explain systematic racism when someone says there's just no such thing?
You just want me to burst. You just
I know.
you want my mind to just burst. I'm gonna let you go, Demetra.
Alex, your patience here.
I'm looking at my phone because I sent some numbers to the ladies
Yeah,
prior
Yeah.
to us actually coming on. And I don't know, Andrea, are you able to share those to the group?
Let me pull it up.
Okay. So while we're
Yeah,
looking at that, I'm going to see if Andrea can share them, but you can actually look at the numbers. And I know people will say, well, I don't see people of color or, minorities on boards. You can look at that. You don't see minorities in actually CFOs or CEOs of companies. You don't see that either. So when you start thinking about those things, you start looking for minorities, and then you can see it play out in real life. And then another thing you can look at, when you look at how the U.S. is structured, who's in the top 5%?
It's got some glare a little bit.
Sorry, we'll plug it in if we can't get it in now.
Yeah.
But just really looking at, if you look at the structure of payroll, what that looks like. If you look at the structure of right now, what businesses were hardest hit by COVID-19, which businesses got the funding from the government and which ones didn't. Like, you can really see the concrete how the system shows up. And something else, look at how many people of color and minorities were affected by COVID-19. We didn't just by chance just walk outside and get COVID-19. You got to think about how the environment is structured. And then you got to think about the jobs. Where are these people working? It's not like they have the ability to work from home. So when you think about a lot of the service-oriented jobs, yes, people will say, oh, well, people could have picked up themselves by their bootstraps. Well, what if you have no boots? So then you can't pick yourself up at all. And I think that's where we fall short. And if you think about just where people are living, the educational system, what am I being taught in order to empower myself? And I think this is a big one for me. And I'm sorry, Kwan, this is like my soapbox.
You
When
are
I
gonna make
think
me,
about
you're gonna make me
how
speak up. But go ahead.
it just overwhelms me. When I think about how I'm educated as a kid, they don't teach me that I had people that look like me that could have been kings and queens. And they don't tell me that people that look like me built the pyramids. You don't tell me that. You tell me that my ancestors were slaves and that we came here and we picked cotton and we did all these things, but you never tell me anything that empowers me. But then you'll go to the 50s and 60s and you'll talk to me about Martin Luther King and you'll tell me a little bit about Harriet Tubman. But where are the people that actually did some amazing things? And we're not taught that. And when you think about a lot of the racism and hatred, it's taught to you from that perspective, because most people will say the master, quote unquote, on the plantation was this white man, predominantly. Okay, so you're already embedding that hatred in me, telling me that this person controlled my family, this person sold off my great uncle or whomever. You're telling me that. You never said, well, this person, these people built the pyramids, these people did this. You never say that. So when you think about systematic racism, you're not even empowering me to know who I am as a person and what I bring. And I think that for me just infuriates me, because when history's taught, there's nothing about powerful people of color in history. It's not in my books. And what I've learned is I had to go teach myself. And then when you think about it, go to the schools and think about what they're being told. Even like Columbus discovered America. We all know that's not true. But that's what I was taught. And then when I got older, I started to think about this differently. How can you discover something where people are already living here? So when you don't empower people to know who they are and what they bring, you're teaching them that they're already less than. And if you just open up the system and let them know who they are, then could you imagine how different it would be if you took a child of color, you took them to Egypt and let them see the pyramids, let them see the people that look like them that created that. Or if you take them to Greece and you see that these people are dark. I mean, when you see that, it gives you a different perspective, but it's not taught to you. And then when you see it, the people's faces and their complexions are changed. It's systematic racism from the beginning. And I don't know how much control we have over that to some degree, but you don't see any prominent figures that look like you being shown. And that goes back to the media, that goes back to the movies. It's there and it's embedded. So you become, and I'm not saying everybody, but you're seeing this every day. So when you think about your options, sometimes you don't even know what options are afforded to you because you don't see them. Right. And I think the system is built that way because think about it. The NFL is really big right now, talking about what they're doing with Colin Kaepernick. Okay, do you see any NFL minority owners? You see none. You don't see any. You don't see any in most sports. You don't. So you think that's by chance? You don't think that there's any minorities that could afford to buy a team? It's not by chance. It's because the system is built that way. And it's the world we live in. I don't think it's right. And maybe I'm a little biased. Well, actually, I am a little biased. I think things need to shift in order to create a fair place of opportunity, because there's people that have wealth, but then yet they're frowned upon, or you're not going to give them a fair chance to grow their business, or the playing field is never level. And I think we talked about this last week when Ann said, if I caught her coattail, how hard did I have to run to catch her coattail? So I just think the system is not built to protect me. Even the justice system is not built to protect me, but yet you want me to go out and you want me to believe in these things. Justice is blind. Lately, she has not been. Actually, she's never been. So when you think about that, you can't tell me the system is built to protect me and to empower me when it's not.
Yeah, and
And I'm
Demetra,
sorry, guys, that's my soapbox.
I think you made some really good points there. I'm glad you shared that. One thing, that I've been kind of thinking about through all this is the system, period. It's kind of like, when you have a pipe burst at your house and water's just spilling out of it. And instead of, keep trying to repair the pipe and water's still bursting out, you go to the water main and you shut off the main valve, right? So
Right.
it's almost like, at what point do we look at who created the system?
Right.
And who's perpetuating the system, and let's go all the way to the top and
Right.
fix that. And I see, like, we've got this, what the media is calling a race war. Well, what about a class war? That's been going on forever. The same people who created the system way back when, even before there was America, when America was burgeoning, and before the whole era of slaves and whatnot, those same families, or the same network, are still the 1%. They're still there controlling the system. So
Right.
in my mind, to really win this battle, instead of us continuing, and I'm gonna get on my soapbox right now, instead of us continuing to further divide and further put ourselves in these labels, right? Because what we're doing by doing that is removing the individual of ourselves. And you both spoke so beautifully on that point about, we're not colorblind, and that's not how we should see each other. We should see each other as our individual self. But my fear, I'm looking at things like the police are bad. And that's how we group together a whole group of people. And that's not a fair judgment.
Right.
In every group, there are good and there are bad, and that can be independently true and it can be harmoniously true. That's how the world works, with every group of people. We cannot place judgment on one massive group. All white people are not racist. All Black people are not anything. All anything are not one thing. We have to pull out the individualism in all of us and honor that. Right. And so what happens when we continue to subdivide in these groups and we continue to fight among ourselves? What is that accomplishing when the system is still above it all? The system is still very healthy. And I will remind you that the system is profiting quite a lot on not just this. You talked about the coronavirus and the businesses that have been hit so hard. Well, guess what? They've profited like 800% grown their profit while all this is going on. So I really like to encourage people to look, where's the root of it all? And that's more of a question than a statement. What's the root of it all? And can we go there? And can we demand change from the top down? And I'm not talking about government. I'm talking about even above that.
And that's a great point. I mean, when you look at the system and you look at those that are in the system, and you're talking about systematic racism, right? So you're looking at the system, and then you're talking about the heart of racism. And so, and the bias. And so if we do not, in your silo, look at the system that you are influencing, you're talking about what can you give back to a community? What can you do to make this change? Look at the system that you have the most influence in, whether you are just talking on the entry level, or whether you have created the company, you're at the top. Systems that are against a certain race, system that has policies, hiring policies, um, 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 income, when you're negotiating incomes, education requirements, and what they will allow someone to come in entry level. When you have systems that have the bias, the race bias, it then trickles down into another system, talking about socioeconomic, right? Where my husband might make less, which then trickles down to the area, the zip code that we can afford to live in, which then influences the quality of the school that my child is going to go to, so that you have someone else that is in another zip code, making another income bracket, having the exposure to travel and all these other things that their child, it is systematic because it is generational. So then my children don't have the same, end up with the same privileges that your child does. So then when they go for the job, their resume doesn't look like yours. when they go to the job, they may have a 2-year degree instead of a 4-year degree. That the perception of that school influences where my child goes. So instead of me being able to provide a down payment on a house when they get married, or pay their student loan, or them get a scholarship so they don't have student loan, it's just all these different systems that come together. And to your point, Andrea, if you do not look at the system
Right.
and then take it further and look at your influence in your system and how to take that racist bias out of it to level the playing field, we will keep going around this circle. And when you look at policing, you're right, there are good cops. My dear friend was a cop. I have a nephew who's a cop. I have a nephew who is a firefighter. That's a heart. You go into that because of your heart to serve your community. Um, the policies and the systems within policing have to be equal. Because if you look at the young man that just lost his life in Atlanta, Brooks, yeah, he got the taser. Yeah, he was drunk. But if you look at the policies behind how a police officer would handle it with Brooks and handle it with a white male, it's totally different. That speaks to, one, the policy. Did they follow the policies? And two, the heart of that one cop. Not the other ones that went to work that day, not the ones that did good, not the ones that saved a life, that one heart. So I think that if we start looking at the heart of people and looking at who we're hiring, looking at their background, looking at the heart, you will start seeing that the people you're putting in these systems, Andrea, will change the policies to make the playing field even in all areas, education, jobs, government, all those different areas. But okay, I'm off my soapbox now.
Oh,
Demetria.
There was one piece left out,
Yeah.
just the health and wellness perspective,
Yeah.
right? Because where I live dictates where I get to eat.
That's right. My health care.
Right. So can I go get fresh fruit and vegetables?
That's
if
right.
my zip code if it's not in my zip code, how am I going to get it? And
right.
I think that's how people get sick. That's where the obesity and the health issues and all of that comes from.
That's
and right. I think that infuriates me when people say, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, but I don't even have boots.
That's
so
right.
I can't pick myself.
That's a perfect way of saying it. I mean, that's a perfect example of, I can only do with what I have. Right. And I'm trying to do the best I can, but this is all I got,
Right.
So.
Yeah. So I hear awareness is just first opening our eyes and being aware, right? And I think when we talk about, like last week, we talked a little bit about what white privilege means. And I know people feel very offended by that, but I don't think it's not necessarily a derogatory term. It's just recognize the privilege that, like, I may have as a white female over you as a Black female, right? And understand that. And then, so have awareness and then fight for it. Like, look at our laws, go out and vote people in, right? Vote people in who will change the laws. Look at gerrymandering, right? And the lines in which they create the areas that we vote. There's so much. I know one thing that I would say too, if you're white, one of my first books was Waking Up White. And that really created a lot of awareness for me about the system and the systematic racism that happened so far back. And yeah, it's nothing that I was a part of, but it perpetuates if I just sit here and utilize it and not try and help my friends that aren't on the side of the privilege that I may have, right? So privilege isn't necessarily about, am I wealthy, but it does affect my economic status, and it has, but you can be an incredibly poor white woman and still be more privileged.
Right. Are you at the same starting point as your neighbor who's African American? Are you at the same starting point as someone that is Hispanic? Are you at the same starting point? Privilege means you're not at the same starting point. You are ahead of the game. That could be just because that person likes you better. They can relate to you better. So they're going to tell you to take 10 steps up and then start there. They're going to place you at a place where you are more advanced, you have more of an advantage over someone that just walked in the door.
Yeah, it's not something that, as when I say I'm white privilege, it's not that it's something you're trying to take advantage of. It's just saying when you roll the dice, every time you're going to get double sixes.
Right.
And
Right.
and it's
Right.
not, it doesn't have it. I'm not making that happen, but it's happening.
Right.
Um,
Right. Right.
So I know with respect to time and everything, and
You gotta
again,
have part 3.
I know, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just, there's so much to talk about. And I think
talk about.
what I appreciate is the trust between all 4 of us, and that we can talk about it and say things that we might be embarrassed to say in front of somebody else, or, you know, to question. And I'm looking at Facebook and seeing all the interaction, and I see things like Jessica Ramsey's been putting up mapping Charlotte's inequality. Reading is so important. And so, you know, I recommend if you're starting somewhere, look at Waking Up White.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in the book club now where we're reading White Fragility. And that's fascinating. But there's so many books out there. I highly recommend the author Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Mm-hmm.
And Between the World and Me, where he's writing to his son about what it's like to be a Black man in America. So could we close out with, well, Andrea, before I ask the last question, which is just a quick one of what can we do in our community to educate about racism from each of you, but is there anything you want to add from our Facebook comments, Andrea?
I think we covered everything. If anyone has any last questions, please feel free to put them in right now. I'm just kind of quickly scanning through to make sure I didn't miss anything.
And we'll add the statistics that Demetra sent to us. I think I'll be able to add those in the comments later. So come back and look through the comments and look at that. Share this conversation and our first conversation with your friends that are curious.
And if there's something that they want the discussion to go deeper, or a question that they want, you know, something may have sparked a question, or, you know, they thought about a question. If you put it in the comments, we'll know to ask it next time.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, add it in the comments. That's a great idea. So Kwan,
yes,
what would you say? What can we do in our community to educate about racism?
I think conversations like this go a long way. You know, small conversations go a long way. I think looking at if you're in business, if you're in education, looking at the policies and really judging whether they're equal or not and speaking to those. So if you want to know what you can do, start researching in what you do in your area of influence, in your area of expertise. Where is there racism and where you are? If that's your family and you're looking at how, you know, what perspective do we look at, you know, this, or, you know, what are we teaching our children? You know, it could be right in your own home. But I think starting to look in your area of influence and looking how you can make change in that influence through policies, through changing of hearts, because it's a heart thing. My pastor this Sunday, you know, I'll shout out to Life Center International, right? He talked about us all being one blood. Our blood is red. We're all one. And so we have to look at it through the mind of Christ, the mind of God, that when you love and you're kind, that's where it starts, right? That's where it starts. And when you look at it out of that lens and make influence in your area, I think that's, as a community, that's where we can start.
Awesome. Thank you. Demetra.
I think the first thing is, as you said, and stop looking at white privilege, quote unquote, as being such a bad thing. You have some influence. You utilize that power that you have to change the system. Yeah. And I say that when you go to wherever you're going, if you're a business owner, when you show up at your business, or if you're in a place of management, wherever that is, look around you. And if everybody looks like you, that's a problem. So I want you to just look, and that's simple. Look around you And if everybody looks just like you should ask yourself why.
Right. If you're an educator and your classroom doesn't have any minorities in your classroom, that's a problem. To your point, Demetria. Sorry.
Or any minority teachers.
Or
right?
any minority teachers. Absolutely.
Or
Absolutely.
if
in
you don't have,
or in the classroom. Absolutely.
And if you don't have any positive books about minorities, ask yourself why.
You're gonna make me shout.
People just don't think about that. They just pick up the, and I'm like, really challenge that.
That's
if you,
true.
And I mean, as we mentioned, I don't look at white privilege as being a bad thing. That just means you have more influence and you get the benefit of the doubt that I'm hoping I will get it one day and Kwan will get it one day, but at this point, we're not getting it. So really look around and say, there's all of these people look like me. Why? And what can I do about that to get some minorities in here to try to level that playing field?
It's true.
Super. Thank you. Thank you. Andrea, do you have any last closing comments?
I don't think we have any more questions for right now, but just as Kwan said, please feel free to jot down any questions or topics that you'd like us to cover in a subsequent episode. And hopefully this week is a good week. Obviously, we see today maybe something we're celebrating is the president did the executive order calling for police reform. So that is certainly progress, something hopefully that we can celebrate. And that's a good way to head into this week.
Yeah, it's a start.
Great conversation.
Absolutely.
Great conversation.
Yep, absolutely.
I think, thank you all for this conversation, and hopefully we'll have more. And please, if you're joining us live or even on the replay, share your comments and ideas about it. And, who knows, maybe this will spark into a whole different project where we have these conversations often, so yeah, thanks for everybody participating. And thank you, Kwan and Demetra, so much.
For inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Good night.